Welcome back to Crosscut, everybody. This week we are watching the movie Joyride.
Yay.
Yeah, Chris is excited because we just watched one of the funniest movies ever, the 2023 female-led raunchy comedy. Chris, what do you think of Joyride?
Are we talking about the same Joyride or something like that?
I was waiting to see your
I'm,
reaction.
I'm confused. It took me a second.
All right. Truly welcome back to Crosscut. I am your co-host, Josh.
And I'm your co-host, Chris.
So, with that Abbott and Costello routine in the beginning, no, we are not watching the comedy that came out a couple years ago called Joyride. We are actually watching the 2001 suspense horror movie starring Paul Walker and Steve Zahn. That's the movie you actually did watch, right, Chris?
Yes.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure, because I've actually never seen the other movie. Why Joyride? Why this movie? Chris, why this movie? No, I'm just kidding.
You picked it, so you tell me why Joyride. I've never seen it, so.
Yeah, so this is your first time watching it. This is my first time watching it in a while. I've seen this movie multiple times before. This was one of those movies that I feel like it was always on TV, like cable TV, when I was younger, and I just remember always watching it. And I had not seen it in a while. And then you and I think this was after our whole baseball streak we went on, where we did all the baseball movies. You weren't sure what movie you wanted to do next,
right?
And I started recommending a bunch of movies, and I think I had just bought this movie like on streaming, so it was like on sale, and I was like, "Ooh, Joyride! Yeah, I haven't seen that movie in a while. I'll buy that." And I think I was kind of going through my list. I was like, "Okay, yeah." I threw it out there. You decided to go with The Crow, and then I was like, "I'll save that one." And then I was like, "You know what? I think I'm gonna go with that one." So yeah, I remember watching this movie when I was younger. God, I probably had seen this movie only ever on TV as well. It always stood out to me. It was just kind of a interesting premise. Well, let's get into the story. So, First off, if you've never seen the 2001 movie Joyride, spoilers ahead because we are definitely going to spoil some stuff. But essentially, it's about
2001. Come on.
If you haven't seen it by now, well, you missed your chance. So we're going to spoil it. It's about these two brothers.
You were my brother, Anakin.
Who go on this road trip to go pick up a friend. While on the way, the one brother buys what are they called? CB radio?
Radios,
yeah. And this is 2001, because nobody has social media yet. You can't just be messing around on your phone having fun that way. So how do you mess around on a road trip? Well, in this case, you mess with the truckers, and I don't know. Did you ever do that as a kid? Do you ever have like a walkie-talkie that picked up like somebody else's frequency, and you would just kind of like have a little fun with it?
Walkie-talkies, but like not as much like on a road trip or anything like that.
Yeah, but I guess you got to find a way to keep yourself entertained. So we got our two main leads. We got Paul Walker, who this is weird because this is one of two movies in 2001 that Paul Walker starred in that was featured with like vehicles. The other one,
I was thinking the same thing. Fast and Furious, and
oh yeah, two movies in the same year starring Paul Walker about cars. This was the lesser known of the two. The other one kind of went on to become like a pretty big deal. I think they're still making movies for some reason.
There's like the 12th movie coming out soon. I don't know.
Family.
So I just thought that was funny. And then Steve Zahn plays the older brother, even though he's kind of smaller. And I don't know. I kind of bought it as these two as like brothers in this movie. I thought they had good chemistry.
Okay, well, I gotta say something about that. Like, yes, they had the bondingness of brothers, but Fuller's supposed to be the oldest brother, right?
Yes.
For most of the movie, I couldn't see that. I could always see the Fuller being the youngest brother, always depending on Paul Walker's character. It's like, okay, no, he's the older. No, it's backwards.
I think that's the idea, though. Yes, Steve Zahn is the older brother, but his character is the immature one, and Paul Walker almost seems like the mature one. So you almost feel like he has to be the older brother, and I think that's the idea.
It gives that appearance. Yeah,
he gets him out of jail. Steve Zahn was in jail. He goes to pick him up, and the whole idea of this whole movie is that Paul Walker gets this car because he wants to go meet up with his friend who he has a crush on. And along the way, hijinks happen. What are those hijinks? Well, Chris, why don't you tell us about our friend, the voice, aka Rusty Nail. Sounds like a adult film star.
Well, on this road trip that they're going, through, and on their way to pick up his friend Venna, right?
Benna, yeah.
Venna, and what was it? Fuller tries to make it up to Lewis by, okay, I'm gonna give you a CB radio. We'll have some fun. That's exactly what they started doing. They get all this code thing on with the CB and other drivers, and then you hear this deep voice coming from one of the other drivers. It took me a while to figure out who that actor was.
I was about to ask you. I was like, do you know who that is?
Like at first, the first time I heard him, immediately I thought John Goodman.
Okay, interesting.
Because like the voice and the little southern in it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, but then that's not John Goodman. It took me a while to like when he starts talking more about candy cane.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh, and then I heard the very deep like candy cane. That's Buffalo Bill.
The role of Rusty Nail, just the voice, is played by Ted Levine, aka Buffalo Bill, from Silence of the Lambs, and he's been in a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, but he's known for Silence of the Lambs.
But man, he has a great voice. Like I can see, I bet what happened. I don't know this for a fact. I bet what happened was they filmed the whole movie. They probably had an actor because they have a physical actor, somebody on screen that plays this, and it's clearly just not that guy. And I wonder if they originally hired him to just do everything, and then in post they were like, "Ooh, no, we need like a voice. Like we need something to really creep up your spine." And I mean, Ted Levine, man, he has that. His voice just nails it in this movie.
Puts the lotion on its skin.
But I love how just like slow and methodical he'd be like,
just the voice. You imagine him being like this big, rough trucker.
Or even when it becomes a cat and mouse game, like when he's toying with them, like you can just hear the sinister,
like so
yeah, but you can hear it in his voice, and it's like, damn. And I just wonder if that was like the idea was like when they were in post, they're like, whatever we had at the moment was like, we need something better, like we need to like, real, and he sells it. I think this movie, the creep factor works because of how intimidating just this guy's voice is.
Oh yeah, it really is. I like how it starts off as the joke on putting it on to Rusty Nail.
Yeah.
And when they actually
I was gonna say we can kind of explain that scene. So they're at the motel and there's this jerk customer, and of course Steve Zahn, the brother, wants to pull a prank, so they tell this guy on the radio to meet up at the hotel at this time, bring pink champagne, and they're staying in the next room so they can hear all this. I love that scene, by the way, where they're in the room and they're both just got like the way it was shot just looks so good. Very creepy, very like
wall.
Yeah, very like kind of like greenish lighting almost like in the movie Seven or something.
I noticed
like
that a lot in the movie though. It's either like very green, very red, very
red too. A lot of red lighting. So I thought it just like it looks so good. And yeah, just that scene where they're in the motel, they're listening next door. You can barely hear what's going on because the rain in the background, but all you can hear is like gurgling, and something bad happened. And then this was shocking. When they go to the hospital to see what happened, the guys they don't show that on TV. So I was like, damn, like his jaw is just like missing,
completely off.
And I was like, ooh, man, that's ooh. And it's at that point where Steve Zahn and Paul Walker know, like, oh, this is bad.
They screwed up.
Like Steve Zahn is like the devil on the shoulder, and Paul Walker's like the angel on the shoulder. Like he's the one that's like, nah, I don't want to be messing with people.
Moral compass,
yeah, he's the moral compass. That's a good way to put it. So
I know when I got a question though. Like once the next morning, then the cops knock on the door and whatnot, and you're trying to ask questions about what happened, and once they confess and everything like that, how does Rusty Nail figure out it's them right away?
That's a good question. I don't really know. There's parts of this movie that you can say, oh, that's a plot hole. I mean, it's just one of those things where he must have just been following them the whole time. There's parts of this movie that you kind of have to go with like the suspension of disbelief because, how could he have been he's very much had to have been there the whole time, kind of watching them.
Right. But that's the thing. Like that night where he does come at the hotel, he kills him and everything, and then you hear the truck drive away. So like he wasn't there the next morning. So again, how does he figure out who they are?
I think at one point when they hear him walking up to the door, Steve Zahn goes up to the window and kind of looks out very quickly and sees them. So I'm wondering if at that point, maybe on the other end, he kind of caught him looking back, and because the whole thing at the end is that it's that whole recurring thing where they're in the room next to him, and then the big payoff at the end is, oh, they weren't in that room, they were in the room next to him. So he had to have known that they were in the room next to him, and I think it's because he maybe saw Steve Zahn looking out the window real quickly.
That's a big
You just kind of have to go with it. The whole I like the part where they're driving away and you see on each sign it's like, look in the trunk.
Right. And again, Lewis at the end, like, okay, now how does he know the names?
Yeah, I'm not that, I'm sure he could have found a way to figure out their names somehow, some way.
Well, then I was thinking back to where, okay, maybe he found out his name by when they stopped at the gas station and to get gas.
Oh, the credit card, right?
The credit card, since it was the ice trucker.
Yeah,
who follows them. Like, okay, and that kind of makes sense towards the end of the movie, how he could have found out his name. Since he ends up killing the Iceman, right? Goes through the truck,
which is a great scene, by the way. I love that scene. Well, that's just a great setup because it's like, okay, it's not one of those like, I don't know if you thought maybe like, oh, that's not really him, but
I immediately thought it wasn't him.
But I thought the setup was like pretty good.
It was funny seeing Fuller's face the entire time, very scared.
911! We need some help, please! Is anyone out there?
I don't know, just like I like that there's a little chase scene, but they don't get away. Yeah. It's like, oh, he got caught. Or they got caught and now he's toying with them. It's like, okay, that's fun. And then for like a good 10-15 minutes, you think like, oh, this movie's kind of like resolved. And for
they're gonna die.
No. Like after he lets them go, they go pick up the friend and they have these like, fun little like moments where
I didn't think it was gonna end right away.
Nobody would, but I'm just saying, like, the movie makes you feel safe for a while.
No,
like for a good 10 minutes or so. Oh, by the way, I just want to go back to the scene with the cops. The one cop that's interrogates them. Did you recognize him?
Bobby Singer.
Bobby Singer from Supernatural and The Boys. If you watch The Boys too. Yeah, President Bob or former President Bobby Singer. Oops, spoiler, The Boys. So yeah, I thought I was watching. I was like, oh crap, it's Bobby. It's it's that guy. So that was cool for his one little scene. But yeah, so halfway through this movie does kind of take a little break. You kind of forget you're watching a suspense movie. They go pick up the friend. There's this fun little cute back and forth. We get introduced to her like future roommate, they call her, and Charlotte, yeah. And they go to the bar, they're having drinks, there's this little love triangle. Fuller looks like he kind of wants to like get with her. And then I like that scene in the motel. Paul Walker answers the phone. He's like, what's your brother doing with her? And I think that's the whole reason, because it's like the trucker got his payback, right? It's like, okay.
Yeah.
They're even.
At that point when they confessed it was a joke,
yeah,
and whatnot.
He busted up their car. It's like, all right, we're even now.
But that was just a taste of his revenge. He must have been following him ever since then.
But do you think he would have continued the revenge if the girl was never introduced? Because that's his whole thing. Is like, you told me there wasn't a girl.
That's or would
true.
He have?
Because I was always wondering, like, okay, he goes after them because they mess with him, he's going to mess back, but then they're even. But then he continues it. But was it only because he introduced the girl? But he obviously also had to have followed them to the campus to kidnap Charlotte.
Okay, yeah. Then yeah, he was already planning his revenge even before Benna. Yeah, you're right.
I just wonder though, like, if let's say there was never a girl, let's say the girls were never in this movie, and it's just these two brothers, and they went to wherever. Would he have continued the
revenge?
Okay, so you think he just would have found another way to get revenge somehow?
Yeah, he would have, like he says when he's talking on the CB that he wants them to be the end of the joke. He still would have done it. You
All
know,
right.
after he almost kills them the first time, the he's yeah, he's just toying with them at that point, just
Right.
like they toyed with him.
This is Chris's favorite moment when the boys take their clothes off and go into the diner.
I didn't expect that.
I, First off,
Okay.
rewatching this scene because I always remember this scene like on TV. I feel like the first time I ever watched this movie, like that scene was like the first scene that was on. Like I just watched this movie out of order, and I'd rewatch it. And I'm like, dang, there's a lot of kids in that diner.
Yeah, well, the whole truck stop, the whole
There's like
truck stop.
everywhere they turn, it's like mom and her kid, mom and her kid, mom and her kid.
But that's another thing. Like they would have at least called the cops on them or something. Someone must have done something.
Well, they weren't there that long enough because they kind of peace out pretty quickly. Like they get in there, they kind of walk around for a couple minutes, they sit down, the manager comes over, and then they hear the car start and they kind of run out of there.
After they already sat down and ordered the 12
Yeah, but
cheeseburgers.
they only sat down for like a minute before the manager comes over.
He still thinks it's a joke, a frat haze or something like that.
I mean, from his perspective, I kind of would see the same thing. I'd be like, all right, these two young guys, they're naked, you know. And to be fair, Lewis and Fulton or Fuller, they're trying to be like, please, we need your help, you know. And I mean, at that point, it's not like he would have been hearing them. They could have just been like, there's some crazy dude making us do this. Like, please help us. You know what I mean? At one point, rewatching the movie, I was wondering if somehow the trucker bugged the car with like you know what I'm thinking? Like one of those trackers.
I was thinking that too, or he did something to their CB radio that allowed him to always hear them.
That's another fun part about this movie. It's like the whole idea, it's like, you know, they easily could have just, you know, modern term ghosted him at one point, but then it becomes to the point where they can't anymore because once he has Charlotte, it's like we need to play his game. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
So once Charlotte, you know, because I think Fuller says it at one point. He's like, you know, the most powerful thing is just the volume knob, and he turns it off. But the guy still continues to find a way to you know, outsmart them and get.
He's
them
always
back.
a step ahead.
Right. By the way, do you know who co-wrote this movie?
Oh,
J.J. Abrams.
Really?
Because I think this movie ultimately, this is a very clever movie. I think it's a really interesting, well done, at times really creepy, and I love the off-screen villain who we kind of barely see. I think he's a very clever villain. Even that setup at the end, it's almost like he's like a mini Jigsaw where he has the shotgun and she's in the, and I love that scene where he's like, "Don't open the door! Don't open the door!"
Yeah.
And I thought maybe at one point they were. The end game was them getting arrested for like a murder. That actually would have been a really interesting ending.
See, I was thinking that was going to happen as soon as the cops go in and they were just going to go after them. But then, okay, the truck actually just went into the wall. Like, okay,
and he must have set it up. So what must have happened is he kills the ice truck driver. He must have
planted his body on.
Right. So he took the body. He went back and must have, you know, he took the body with him. But he does know their name right after he kills the ice truck killer and he's chasing them and he has them pinned up against the tree. Doesn't he on the radio say their name? I thought he doesn't. Okay. So he didn't know. So then he didn't know their name.
To that. Like
so he went back and no, because he doesn't have the credit card then. So the credit card, because he gave him the card back.
Unless right, yeah. No,
I thought at first, like, oh, he killed the ice truck driver and then he had the card, but no, he did give it back to him. So yeah, I don't know how he figured out their names. That's interesting. Unless what if it's one of those things where maybe he has a police radio too and he could hear their names from when they talk to the police somehow.
Well, technically, could you be able to pick up their police scanner?
Possibly.
Radio?
I mean, possibly. So maybe he heard their names over the radio when they were talking to the police. So maybe he was that morning after that first night, maybe he was kind of parked off to the side and he could hear on the
Picked up the
radio
signal.
and picked them up. Or even like I said, maybe he planted something in the car and he could just
Well,
hear them the whole time.
well, maybe it is the CB radio because then remember, Parker asks him what's the range on the CBs. He
Right. So
says
it's
like
like 5 miles.
So maybe
Yeah.
he actually was very close, and there's trucks everywhere, so you probably just
Mhm.
blended in with another truck.
I like that scene too when they're driving and he's like, "I'm right behind you because your tail
Gotta
light's
fix
out."
that tail light.
And he's like, "What do you see?" I said, "Trucks and cars, man. Like what? I don't know." And then this movie has the ambiguous ending where it's not over. He plants the ice truck driver as the scapegoat, which he must have just planted him in the car and did one of those things where he put like a brick on the wheel just so it
Yeah.
drives straight, and then he just pieced out of there. But also, I guess we never found this out because the movie just kind of ends that night. Would they not have known like that's his truck registered to him with whatever company he worked with, or was it just like a stolen truck? Maybe. I guess that's
Unless
like
you switch the plates.
or that. So
No. He
interesting.
could have
This
switched the
mo-
plates and then just planted his body, but that means like he had that body the entire trip.
Well, it's pretty big back there. I mean, you saw like he had the girl planet back there, so he must have had the body laying back there somewhere.
I guess.
Well, I mean, the back of those trucks, they're pretty big because a lot of truckers sleep back
No,
there.
yeah.
So
Right.
he
But
must have just had a dead body sitting back there the whole time.
the entire time, like decomposing body. It was like, okay.
Well, he's a twisted man, so
True.
old rusty nail. Anyways, this movie does have some sequels. I've never checked them out. They're kind of like The Crow, kind of direct to DVD. One's called
Yeah.
Joyride, Joyride 2, Dead Ahead, and Joyride 3, Roadkill, very appropriately named. Maybe I'll check these out one of these days. Joyride 2, Dead Ahead it came out in 2008, so it came out about 7 years later. Of course, none of the original cast. And then Joyride 3 came out 2014, so about 6 years after that. Also, none of the original cast. So, yeah.
I wouldn't think it was the original.
No. But ultimately, the 2001 movie Joyride, man, I think this movie is just a very well done thriller. I love the chemistry with Paul Walker and Steve Zahn, and the girl Lily Sobieski, she's pretty good too. It's like the first thing I remember seeing her in.
She was all right. She was just there for me.
I'll be there for you.
But definitely Rusty Nail.
Yeah,
for sure. That's a good character. Towards the end though, I actually thought that Fuller was actually gonna die. And like he was forced to choose which one.
This movie has, I think, an alternate ending. I've never seen it. I'll have to check it out. Yeah,
I kind of like that the bad guy got away.
I do too. He outsmarted them at the end. He didn't get caught. And so that is Joyride. If you've never seen this movie, sorry we spoiled everything for you, but I still think you should give it a watch. It's got a good creepy vibe. Yes. Don't go driving afterwards, or definitely don't go on a road trip and watch this movie.
Don't get a CB radio.
Yeah, don't get a CB radio, although who would want those anymore? I guess you could just use your phone to do whatever while you're driving. Sure. But
there's an app for it.
Yeah, there's an app for it. So yeah, that's Joyride. I like this movie. I think it's really cool. I think it looks really, really awesome. Shot well. Early 2001, probably still on film. Looks like kind of like a David Fincher movie at times. So yeah, Chris.
Yeah. It's definitely worth a watch for a nice road trip thriller suspense. Definitely worth watching for the actors and their characters, how the story has a build up and everything. It's a well worth watching movie. Go check it out. I saw it on Paramount Plus, and if you own it, great. Watch it.
Like me.
Like you.
Anyways, thanks for watching, and hit that like and subscribe to stay up to date with more future spooky episodes. Take it away, Chris.
Cut print, moving on.
All right, let's hear your best candy cane impression. Come on.
Hi there, Rusty Nail.
That's a good one, Chris. You should actually do some. We should go on a road trip together, and you can do.
Get a CB radio and see what happens. Yeah, sure. Nothing will go wrong.